Namaste. My name is Ritu. Today is the holy Hindu festival of Diwali. It is traditionally celebrated with prayers and lighting lamps and lighting fireworks. When I was looking at the firework, it really inspired me to do this video. I looked at fireworks, they come in so many shapes, so many sizes, so many colors. They all look different from outside, but inside, what we don't see, what is hidden from us, that it has so much light and sound and sparks when we light it with match. So similarly, in this physical body of flesh and bones, there is infinite hidden power that is unseen, untouched, and that has so much light and joy. Many people get to experience this whole hidden, unseen astral realm when they have NDE, which is called near-death experience. And that is when they clinically die, their astral body leaves their physical body, and they, or most of them, report coming back spiritually transformed. At the same time, many of us have STE, which is spiritually transformative experience, where in meditation or some spontaneous occurrence, divine grace just helps us also experience this unseen, untouched world. We all come in different colors, different sizes, different shapes, but we all have that same infinite power hidden inside us. I've had lots of spiritual experiences, but this particular one that I want to talk about in early 1998 was the most spiritually transformative for me. I have talked about this experience. I have posted this experience on my website, spiritualroute.com. And recently, it's also been published on IAND's website. In late 1997, I had this beautifully vivid dream that I still remember so vividly to this day. And I knew that it had some very profound answer, like it solved the mystery of what this whole life is about. But it was in images, and I just couldn't find an explanation for it. So it was churning and churning in my mind all the time. I was hoping to get a spontaneous insight on my own, or just to find somebody who might give me a clue into it. So in those days, I had been attending some meditation gatherings occasionally. One of those places was a metaphysical bookstore in Dallas. It was about 40 minutes away from my house. There were a lot of street lights that were on the way. Part of the way was street driving, and a lot of it was highway driving. So I used to go there driving by myself in the car. So on this particular day in March 1998, I went in the evening after work to the gathering. Everybody sat in meditation, and I went really deep into meditation. I did not realize that the meditation session was over, that everybody had left, but the shop owner was so kind. She let me just sit there until I got up on my own. And by the time I got up on my own, it was 9 o'clock. So I knew that the shop was about to close. I hurriedly came out towards the main entrance of the bookstore, and I was really wondering if I could talk to the shop owner, like if she could tell me what my dream meant, or she could at least guide me to some book that would have the explanation. But she was in such a hurry to close the shop and leave, so I didn't feel it appropriate to hold her back. So I was feeling really disappointed, but overall I was feeling very pleasant and peaceful. So I said, oh, well, some other day. So I walked out into the parking lot, and it was pretty dark because it was 9 o'clock by that time. And it wasn't, it was like a very small parking lot. There were only 2 cars in there, and it wasn't facing the main road. So there was no traffic on that road. It was just the shopkeeper's car and my car. I went into my car. I sat down. I put on my seatbelt. I took my keys and I put the key in the ignition and I turned it on. That very instant, I heard a explosion, a very loud explosion. For a split second, I thought my car had blown up or a bomb had exploded. But to my amazement, I was still sitting there. And the next instant, before I could have any other reaction, I found myself soaking in divine love. It was as if the whole universe had opened up 360 degrees. It was all open, vast space, almost like nothingness, but everything at the same time. It was the whole of existence right there in that nothingness. It is impossible to describe that love. It was purer than pure. It was beyond wildest imagination, because it's not even right to call it love, but there's just no words in dictionary to describe it. This love was not a part of the existence. The existence itself was love. This existence didn't have love. It didn't express love. It was love itself. Just nothing but pure love. You know, when you wash your laundry and the cloth is saturated with water, how it cannot but just drip water from it. So the same way, this all-pervasive existence that was love was just overflowing. It couldn't not just drip love, because that's what it was. And I call them love drops. And each love drop was taking a physical form. All of the seen nature was formed out of these love drops. Each tree, each blade of grass, each dewdrop, each insect, each human form, each love drop was a manifestation of overflow of this love, this invisible, formless love. Everything, this whole seen existence, unseen, form and formless, was not created and then filled with love like a jelly-filled donut, but its very substance, its very essence was love. During all this experience, I had no awareness of my body. I had no awareness of time or where actually physically I was. I didn't have any thoughts at that time. I was in total experiential state. It's like I said, it's only much, much later I was able to form words to describe this experience. I'm sure you've been in a standard shift vehicle. You know how when you shift the gear, there's like a very slight little pause and it jerks a little bit. So instantly, just like that, I sort of went into a second phase of the experience. So there was like a very slight pause, and then I shifted the gear. I became aware that I am inside a vehicle, but I had no other awareness of my physical reality. I could not feel my body. And this I was more like a I as an awareness. My focus went to the space in front of me. It was like this vehicle that flying through space, and there were billions of shimmering stars coming towards the windshield in a lightning speed. They'd come just next to the windshield, and it's like they just disappear. They weren't colliding with the windshield, but they just come at lightning speed, billions of stars in this open, dark space, but billions and billions of them. And they would just come very near the windshield and just disappear. Next, I became aware that I was crying a lot. It wasn't crying, I was just bawling. I still couldn't sense or feel my body, but I had the awareness that tears were flowing nonstop because I was overwhelmed with the divine love. I had no sense of space or time. And I know this went on for a very long time. Then another sudden shift happened, like the gear shift of a standard car. In an instant, I was the Absolute. I was experiencing complete oneness with all that is, with the entire existence, with the Absolute. I was no longer a separate awareness experiencing God. I was it. I became it. I was that. I was that omnipresent love. I was that formless one dripping love drops that was manifesting into form everywhere. We were one and the same. I was the formless. I was the form, all pervading and timeless. I was everything and nothing at the same time, beyond time and space. I had no birth, I had no death. I had no beginning, I had no end. I had no awareness of my body, a separate existence as a physical being of the car I was in or my surroundings. And that state went on for a while. And then abruptly, just like before, another shift in the gear happened. Similar to the earlier phase, I became aware of my physical presence, not of physical body, but knowing that I have a physical presence, that I was a separate entity from all pervading oneness that I was. Like I was simultaneously both. So the macro me and the mini me. So the all pervading, all that is me. And then this mini me in the vehicle. It was an extremely blissful, thrilling, ecstatic feeling. All pervading I is experiencing itself through this tiny little speck of mini me through this physical body. So now I became aware that I have a physical body and that I'm behind the wheel of the car, that the car is being driven, but I couldn't exactly feel my body. Up until that moment, it was just a pure experience. There was no thought process going on. But now suddenly I had curiosity. I wondered, if I cannot feel my physical body, what part of my awareness is sensing this separateness, is sensing this thought that the mini me is expressing and experiencing? Where is the part that is differentiating the difference between macro me and mini me? When I wondered that, I felt that there was some portion where my physical head would have been, where some of this processing was going on. And just like that, next instant, I became aware of the mini me experiencing this love again. And I also became aware of the fact that I was bawling, had non-stop stream of tears, and awareness that mini me was questioning, how did we forget this truth about ourselves, this eternal truth? We are the absolute. How did we get off track? How did we get so separated from our true self? How can we commit such horrendous crimes and hate and inflict so much pain on others? Be violent. Well, that includes ourselves too. We inflict that pain and violence on ourselves too. I was completely overwhelmed with like the collective pain, the suffering, and it was just heart-wrenching. It was just heartbreaking. So through all of this, I was still whizzing through this whole space with the billions of stars flying towards me. I had no sense of time or space. I never saw my physical surroundings. I never saw the road in front of me. For all it could have been, I could have just been sitting in the parking lot. I had no idea that the car was being driven. I was driving it, obviously. I had no awareness that I had pulled into my driveway. I don't know when I put the car in park. I only became aware of my physical space for the first time when I turned the car ignition key off. So it was like a journey from the parking lot at the bookstore when I turned the ignition key on. And the next time I became aware of my physical surrounding was in my driveway when I turned my ignition key off. And that's also when I noticed how I had been crying nonstop, and there were still streams of nonstop tears flowing. I didn't have any actual physical sense, but just a general awareness of my body. I locked the car. I opened my main entrance of the house. I went inside. All the lights were off because it was close to 10 o'clock by that time. Everybody was asleep. I quietly walked into my toddler son's room. He woke up a little bit. I quickly picked him up and I held him for a few seconds until he dozed off again. I laid him back on the bed. I was completely soaking in love still. I do not remember when I changed my clothes, but remember getting into the guest bed so nobody would be disturbed. I sat up in bed. By this time, it was probably around 10:15 p.m. And as soon as I sat in bed, that experience that had temporarily paused started again. I was love. every cell, every nerve, every fiber of my body. It was bursting with love. Love was pouring into me. And then suddenly I started hearing these ancient Sanskrit chants, how in the ancient times, the sages, the rishis, the yogis would chant Sanskrit shlokas and mantras. Those were in like unison, like there were thousands and millions of them. There was these beautiful, simultaneous, harmonious chants going on. It was like all around my head, and it wasn't a physical sound, but I was aware of their presence and their sounds. And then suddenly my whole nostrils were filled with most unearthly smells like sandalwood. I cannot describe it, but the closest I can say is like sandalwood. Every nerve, every cell, every fiber of my body was vibrating with this love, with the presence, the sounds and the smells. I felt I couldn't take it anymore. I felt I would blow up in a billion pieces. My senses couldn't handle the power of this experience. I didn't have any sense of my physical body, the time and space, and my eyes must have been closed. And it's like my being was trying to assimilate all of this overpowering sensation. I felt I was just going to explode into a billion pieces. And at that time, I had this faint intention. I slightly cried inside myself. I said, I cannot take this anymore. That very instant, everything as abruptly stopped and everything disappeared. The smells, the sounds, the presence. I was still soaking in love, but I was completely exhausted. I fell asleep. It must have been around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. I didn't check the time, but I had a very nice, refreshing sleep. And I just seemed like I had just gone to bed and then I had to wake up again. That experience changed my life in most profound ways. Some while later, when I told my Guruji, a perfect yogi master from India, he validated it. Sanatana Dharma talks about Aham Brahmasmi, which is I am that, I am the Absolute, and that is what our true self is. That's our eternal truth. If you have any questions or comments, you can write it in the YouTube comment section, and I will make more YouTube videos to answer them. And you can also use the contact form on my website, spiritualroute.com. Thank you so much. Namaste.